By the looks of it, X-Plane 12 is going to be with us very soon. In today's video, it's a bit of a channel first. I haven't talked about X-Plane 12 before, so before we get into the news, I would like you to go down into the comments and give me your thoughts on X-Plane 12 before you hear anything on this video. Let me know if you'd like to see it on my channel and what you're excited for or what you're not excited for, that sort of thing. It just helps me out. Basically letting me know whether or not I should make X-Plane 12 content, because it's something I'm personally quite interested in. Without further delay, let's get right into it. Okay, so the major bit of news is that Laminar Research, who are the developers of X-Plane, and of course X-Plane 12, have announced that they're currently packing up a build that they consider a candidate for early public access. Now this was released on the 30th or 31st of August, so it's quite likely they're getting something ready now as we speak. They did say that testing would most likely start the day after they announced this, although I haven't heard too much, so I imagine there's been a slight bit of delay behind the scenes. They then proceed to say that if this alpha build is accepted, they'll move it over to early access for everyone. You can find the source of this information across the X-Plane official social media. I saw it on Twitter, but I believe it was also on Facebook as well. We also have confirmation of pricing. Now this is from May, I believe, so it's a bit older, but anyway, the price of X-Plane 12 will be $59 US 99 cents, which is what, about 45 UK pounds? So a pretty similar price to X-Plane 11 when it was released. But, quite luckily, if you do enjoy X-Plane 11 and haven't picked it up yet, you can pick up X-Plane 12, and that will include access to X-Plane 11 as well. It will be available via two formats, of course, the digital download, which I imagine would be through all your normal sort of providers, such as Steam and the direct X-Plane website. But you'll also be able to pick it up on CD, which is quite nice because, of course, some people just prefer to have a physical copy, and to be fair, I can see why. It saves all the messing about over transferring over to a new computer, that sort of thing. So it's nice that Laminar Research have still considered it. I do believe that's a bit more expensive though. Okay, so now that we've established that public early access is not too far away, in my opinion, it could be a few days away, but it's more likely 2 or 3 weeks. Sort of mid-September is my prediction. Let's talk about X-Plane 12 exactly. I'm going to split it up into airports, aircraft, flight model, weather, and my opinion. So let's start off where most flights start off, hopefully anyway, airports. Now let's address the elephant in the room. X-Plane 12 sort of has to fight with Microsoft Flight Sim. It's just the state of flight simulation as of now. And you can sort of see Laminar Research going for this with what they're focusing on. They're focusing on the airport ground environment. This includes livery selection for ground aircraft that match up to the real world location. Of course, something that people really want in Microsoft Flight Sim, as shown by people's love of AI traffic mods. Laminar Research have also made it so airport ground services accurately match up to the type of airport. That means you're not going to have 5,000 pushback tugs at a small regional airport, that sort of thing, which I think is one of Microsoft Flight Sim's flaws. Of course, I'm exaggerating a bit there, but there's been times on Microsoft Flight Sim where I've gone to a little airport and there's like 20 ground service vehicles. It's just quite unrealistic. So it's clear Laminar Research want to set themselves apart by making sure you get an accurate, realistic ground environment when you're at the airport. They've also brought over animated jetways, which is pretty good. Improved autogen, as in what buildings spawn at automated airports. I always found that X-Plane 11's airports, although weren't as accurate as Microsoft Flight Sim airports, did look less cartoonish and therefore look a bit more realistic, but that sort of came at the expense of everything looking a bit grey. So hopefully improved autogen sorts that out a bit. There's also been a big focus on jetways, making sure they line up with the aircraft door, for example, and giving developers tools to allow that to happen easily. I did watch this on an interview with Julian, I believe it was on the FS Elite website. It's about a 40-minute interview and it's really good if you want to get a good feel of airports in X-Plane 12. Although I've summarised the main points here, X-Plane 12 and Laminar Research for that matter are certainly focusing on an improved ground environment. Move over to aircraft now. Let's see what we've got. You may have seen some of these aircraft announced across social media. We haven't necessarily got a definitive list yet, but we have got some highlights. from the Citation X to the Airbus A330, Van's RV10 to an R44 helicopter to a Cirrus SR22, a diverse collection of awesome aircraft. Of course, the Airbus A330 stands out from that list. Many people are going to be excited for it, but at the same time it is a default flight sim aircraft, so you do have to limit your expectations, I guess. But Laminar Research are trying to make it as realistic as possible. They did announce it a few months ago, so I don't know how quickly they can build an aircraft, how realistic they can make it in those few months. It seems to be something that might not necessarily come with the initial release of X-Plane 12, just depending on scheduling, because there's a few things it seems they still want to do with it. I'm personally really looking forward to the Cessna Citation X. It looks much better than the Microsoft Flight Sim Citation, and with my job in real life, I'm working around private jets a lot more than I ever have done, really. I've seen more private jets in one day than I have in the rest of my life, so it's really, really cool, and it's a side of aviation I'm really starting to get into now, so I really can't wait for that. Of course, what sets X-Plane 12 apart from Microsoft Flight Sim and the likes of other simulators is the flight model. It is exceptional. Their flight model is based on something called Blade Element Theory. Now, I'm not going to go in the science of it because it's too complex for me, to be perfectly honest with you, but it just results in incredibly realistic aerodynamics, which of course are better than Microsoft Flight Sims. Now, comparing it to Microsoft Flight Sim, because of course my channel is very Microsoft Flight Sim orientated, it is clear that X-Plane 12 is going to lose out compared to Microsoft Flight Sim in things like scenery, okay? It's a no-brainer. But where Laminar Research can have the one-up is with flight model. Blade Element Theory results in incredibly realistic aerodynamics and an incredibly realistic feel of flying. So if they can build up on that even more by having the likes of moving air, so really good turbulence simulation, that sort of thing, wake turbulence as well, then X-Plane 12 are onto an absolute winner in terms of being able to draw over pilots that want to actually feel how an aircraft flies, as opposed to flying VFR looking at the ground. But Laminar Research do have to do that to a pretty high standard, because Microsoft Flight Sim's flight model is not rubbish, it's pretty good. In many examples, it's just not the best it could be, especially when you compare it to X-Plane. I did sort of combine aircraft and flight model there. ATC has also been updated from X-Plane 11, however most people don't really care about inbuilt ATC. VATSIM and IVAO offer a much better alternative to those that want highly realistic ATC, but for those that are a bit nervous and just want to familiarise themselves with air traffic control, well, it could be a very good bet. Now, moving over to improved weather, this is something Laminar Research, Austin and the team have been focusing on. New volumetric clouds are coming over, a better weather engine overall in terms of how it injects live weather and weather presets, and importantly, an enhanced low visibility model. In my opinion, X-Plane 12, or X-Plane 11 for that matter, is the simulator you want to use if you want to really accurately recreate IMC conditions and how to fly IFR, and that's why I guess it's picked up by most major professional flight simulators. You'll see it in the full motion ones, for example, that or P3D, and let's be honest, P3D is pretty outdated. Now, referring back to airports quickly, we'll link it into weather. Rain and snow rendering on the ground looks simply fantastic. Now, I've been showing you trailers throughout this video, and you can just see I think this is the best in any simulator. We do sort of have it in Microsoft Flight Sim, and it does look pretty good on some people's systems if you link it up with an NVIDIA control panel well enough, but it seems to me Laminar Research have pretty much aced this, and that's mostly complete in the alpha build, so hopefully ready for public early access. So where is my opinion? Where do I lie with X-Plane 12? I will be picking it up, but Microsoft Flight Sim will probably be staying my simulator of choice. They can both coexist, and I'm sure they'll both be fantastic simulators. Microsoft Flight Sim's fantastic, X-Plane 11's fantastic, so I do not see why X-Plane 12 would be the exception to that rule. I know there's some people that really like to get basically quite annoying about this really, and just say, oh, I only like X-Plane 12, or I only like Microsoft Flight Sim. But speaking from an aviator's point of view, and someone that has dealt with every aspect of the community for the last 2 years through YouTube, I think it is better to have competition than it is to separate and sort of create cults around simulators, because they can both have their positives. I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but I'll preach to you anyway, just joking of course, but I do think they can both coexist, and the more the merrier in my opinion. Of course, having that choice is always very nice, and I can imagine myself going on X-Plane 12 when I'm fed up with Microsoft Flight Sim crashing, for example. My final conclusion here would be that VFR flying is not the draw to X-Plane 12 unless you're going VFR into IMC conditions. This suits instrument flying much better, and that's because of the flight model. So if you're flying by the ground, Microsoft Flight Sim, despite the slightly worse flight model, has a much better level of immersion when it comes to ground scenery, which of course is fundamental to VFR flying, and having a realistic blast in airliners in visual weather. But saying that, because X-Plane 12 and X-Plane 11 for that matter suit instrument flying much more, because the flight model is better, this definitely suits those that want to go into flight training or are flight training at the moment for certain types of flying, and I imagine it will be picked up by the professional flight sim companies such as CAE. But saying that, Microsoft Flight Sim can also be used for flight training and the flight model is acceptable. I'll show you a little clip of me just going over my flight lesson that I did the other day, which was stall recovery. You can see me in the Cessna 152 here in the simulator. Microsoft Flight Sim did a pretty good job at recreating it, but of course it was a bit funny with the nose. So in stall recovery, for example, in a 152, your nose shouldn't drop as much as it did here. It's more of a gradual process. I don't believe that would be the case in X-Plane 12. It would probably get it much better. However, they're both fantastic simulators, and as I said, the more the merrier. X-Plane 12 isn't far away, and I'm pretty excited for it. From me today, that is all. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and check out my Amazon affiliate links for all the stuff I use to fly, film and edit. Bye bye.